Hi, everyone. Thank you, Paulina, Natalie, and Irene for having me here. I'm very excited to be here. I will share with all of you, I do not like public speaking, so I apologize. I'm very nervous, but I'm excited at the same time to talk about what I'm the most passionate about. So who I am and what I do is I'm an intuitive advisor soul coach. And really that's just a fancy way of saying I'll just say, we're all psychic, right? Everybody, all of us are. I'm a seer, so I'm very psychic. I see things. I just don't say that because it's not apropos, and I just don't feel like there's a negative connotation attached to that word sometimes. But in reality, I also use a very grounded approach with it. So I bring in tarot cards and astrology charts, which is my main passion. How many of you, just by a show of hands, are familiar with astrology? Okay. Beyond just your sun sign, though, like you're a Taurus or a Virgo. Anybody? Okay. How many of you are very interested to know more about it? Okay. So I'm going to go to my slides because I want to make sure that I get everything that I wanted to talk about. So astrology does not excuse behavior, it explains it. This is very true. Recently, I've been working with a lot of mothers of young children that they may have quote-unquote behavioral problems, let's just say. It's not a problem, it's their energy. They're hardwired by their chart to be very communicative, expressive, high energy, bouncing off the walls, where another child is quiet and they like to read and sit in the corner. That's not an accident, that's literally their astrological blueprint. So when you hear like the sun, the moon, Venus, are you all familiar with the planets? Okay. So your sun sign is just when you're born. So if you're April 6th, you're in Aries, right? Virgo September 10th. But there's like a 30-day time period in each sign that the sun spends time in. So everybody that's in September is pretty much a Virgo till you get to the end. And then they're Libra. But that doesn't make them all the same. And I'm sure you've all experienced that with people in your life, right? Like, two Scorpios, totally different. Two Aries, totally different. So the reason for that is when you look at this, you start with Aries because it's the first sign of the zodiac, right? You go to Taurus, second, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, all the way around, right? These are the symbols. This, to many of you, probably looks like nonsense. To me, it's like a language. Well, astrology is the language of energy, and I just happen to be, that's my gift. I'm very gifted in looking at someone's chart and just going boom, 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 and kind of putting it out there. And most of the time it's very positive because we all know our strengths and weaknesses on a very deep level. We just are not always very aware of how or why we behave certain ways. We're conditioned to act certain ways because our subconscious always wants to win, okay? So this is just the astrological wheel with the signs and the symbols for each sign. Now if you look here, I pulled up, this is just I made up this person, it's fictional, so this is someone's birth chart. How many of you have seen an actual birth chart? Okay. So the houses 1 through 12 are areas of life where someone's energy is concentrated. So you can see this chart's kind of all over the place. And the red aspects are challenging, the green is more harmonious, and so is the blue. Challenging doesn't mean bad, it just means this is an area that person has to work harder in to express themselves or to bring out their own uniqueness and individuality, right? And then these are all the other planets here. So that's one person, random chart, okay? Now here's another person. You see how different these look? Yeah. Okay. So imagine how different we all are and what goes into our astrological blueprint, basically. So the exact time that you're born is not an accident. Now, your sun sign, like I said, is just the time period that you're born. However, I'm trying not to get too nerdy because I want to keep this I want it to make sense. Okay, so say you're a twin, okay? And you're a 4-minute difference from your sibling. You're both going to be the same sun sign, okay? Unless it's like midnight and then 12:04, because then you'll change into the next sun sign. But on that last day of the, you know what I mean. So if you're 4 minutes apart, every 2 minutes there's another sign that rises above the eastern horizon of the sun. And that changes every minute and a half to 2 minutes, and that is your ascendant. that's a huge part of who you are because that is your outer layer. So when you read your horoscope, you should really also read your ascendant, which is why some people will say, oh my gosh, I don't act like an Aries. I'm much more sensitive because maybe you're a Cancer rising, but you don't know that if you don't know your chart, right? So then the moon is that's like your soul, that's your emotion. That is who you are instinctively on the most fundamental level. Nobody knows that side of you, and sometimes you don't even know it about yourself because it's hard to acknowledge it if you don't know what it is. So let me tell you how I got into astrology. That was supposed to be at the beginning of my presentation, so I apologize. But when I was little, I'm one of 5 children, and I'm the 4th one in the lineup, and I have all boys before me. So along I come, and I had a great childhood. I didn't have anything, crazy or bad. It was just that there was a lot of us, and we were all within 8 years of each other. So it was a lot going on, and I always was quiet and would retreat into my little hole and just constantly ponder, life, and I always felt energy on a very deep level that I couldn't understand. And I would read, my mother would go food shopping, and I would sit in the back, and I would read a book every time, because she knew the lady there, and she would watch me. And I remember finding Linda Goodman's Sun Sign book, which, by the way, if anybody's interested in astrology and just wants like a baseline, read that book. A lot of people have read, I see somebody shaking her head, a lot of people have read that book. So read that book, and I'm sitting there reading this book, and she gets into moon signs. And I'm like, moon sign? What the heck is that? And then I realized your moon is likely in a different sign than your sun, and the moon's your emotion. And one thing I could never understand is, I'm a Taurus, and I was so sensitive as a kid. I still am, but as a child, I remember my stomach would hurt. Like, I'd walk into a room, and I would be like 7, and I would have an instant panic attack. Or I would see somebody that was sad, but they looked happy, and it would really affect me on a very deep level. I'm reading this book, and it's talking about moon signs. I'm like, I gotta find out more. In the meantime, I think I was 11 at the time, or 10. I have to find out more about this. So I picked up an ephemeris, which is an astrology book. It's all technical. I'm not technical. I'm not. I start reading it, and I figure out my moon's in Pisces, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, because Pisces is the most sensitive sign of the zodiac. And having your moon in the most sensitive sign in the zodiac will make you extremely sensitive. So anyway, it kind of all clicked for me, and I became fascinated. And then the internet came out, and then I joined a astrological group, and I met this man named Kevin out in California, and he mentored me for years. He sadly passed away, but he was, I'll never forget him saying to me, you have to do this in a way that keeps you grounded. He said, you have to always trust that you will know when it's time to bring your charts to other people. So study your own chart, learn it front to back, and then bring that to other people. And that's what I did. And I didn't even start incorporating charts until about 6 years ago. So anyway, my point is with this slide is pay attention to the things you are naturally drawn to. They're often connected to your path, passion, and purpose in life. Have the courage to follow them. Sometimes the things we're drawn to, we can't follow for logical reasons, right? We have to pay our bills. Some of the things we're interested in or drawn to, we're like, well, how am I gonna make that work for me? Sometimes the universe, which is why I say everything's connected, steps in and throws you into situations where you have no choice but to change and use those skills that you have and use your passion to bring you forward, right? So that brings me to my next, sorry, I'm looking at my outline to make sure I don't forget what I wanted to say here. Sorry. Okay. I worked government for years, and I hated it, being honest. I felt like I was dying I would literally come home and cry. My husband's right there. It was bad. Bad. Sick all the time. Sunday night would roll around, stomach pains, couldn't deal with it, had to go to work. I had the health insurance, and had very good health insurance, and there was just no way around it. So 2015, by the way, I always had a side business of doing readings, and because I loved it. And so I would do these readings, and I had clients, but I was afraid to advertise because people would think I was weird. And I have this government job. So I did it on the side, never advertised or anything. Worked, miserable, blah, blah, blah. 2015, I get a I get an offer for another job. It was a lot more money. And I remember thinking to myself, I know I should not take this job because it's going to be bad for me, but I feel like I have to take this job. And I did it. It was horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Worse than the first one. And literally every night I would go home and I would pray and light a candle. And I would say, please help me get out of this job because I don't know what I'm going to do. Long story short, a year to the day of my probation, I got laid off. And I had to pretend that I was upset about it. And I will never forget that day because I walked in the room and my boss was horrible. He was verbally abusive. I should have pressed charges. I never did. So it was bad. So I remember going in there and him telling me I was laid off. And he said, well, I want you to give me an exit interview. And I looked at him and I said, no, because you're letting me go. Why do I have to give you an exit interview? Long story short, I didn't do it. And went home, cried, of course, I cry all the time. And he said to me, I believe he used a term I'm not going to say right now because there's a curse word involved. But he basically said, promote yourself. Just put yourself out there. We'll make you a website. And I'm like, I can't do that. People are going to think I'm... And everybody kind of knew Lisa, like, oh, Lisa, she's a witch, or she knows things, whatever. And so I did what he said, and I have to be honest with you. My life changed, like literally, like took off in a way. I'm gonna cry. I always cry. In a way I could never imagine. Sorry. What's wrong with me?
You're just human.
I know. Thank you. But anyway, my point is, sorry. It brought me here. So we all have our own gifts and talents. Why am I crying so much?
Let it be. Let it be.
It's all good.
We're gonna cry
So,
with you. Come on.
let's move on. Let me see if I can. Hold on. Okay. Point being, follow your passion, and eventually at some point, something will shift for you, even if it's little. And sometimes those little things end up being the biggest things, right? To go back to the birth chart. So, okay. There are 10 planets that are very significant, right? You've got the Sun, the Moon, Venus, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Now, they all have a specific function. So Venus is how and who you love. So for people that are single and are dating, you can continuously attract the same kind of man. You're like, why do I keep attracting Geminis? Oh my gosh, they're so annoying. Or this Aries, he's such a pain. If you looked into your chart, you would see why. Because your Venus is probably in Aries, or it's aspecting a Gemini planet, like a Gemini aspect that goes to your chart. So there's always a reason. It's not random. It seems random, but it's not random. Nothing's random. So also, when you are not just dating, any kind of connection in your life, you can actually look at your chart and then the other person's chart to see the chemistry. So you can see how you interact. It's good for business too. You could see like business partners. Will I work well with this person? Well, yes, but be careful of this, this, and this, because you have the potential to be controlling and she's passive. So you have to watch that balance, But I know I hear people laughing because they know it's true. They know what I'm saying is true, but it's astrology. It doesn't excuse behavior, but it explains it. It really does. And for me, I've always had this habit of, as a kid especially, people would be talking to me and I would be listening to them, but in my head I'm like, oh my God, but I don't want to lose what I want to say. I got to get it out, and I would cut them off. And I knew, no, that's not endearing. And then when I started to really look into my chart, it's actually there. So I said, okay, this is something I really need to work on. So it helps you because it shows you your strengths, and then it shows you your weaknesses. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. One other thing I wanted to say, that last quote, which I don't know if I can get. Sorry. Where did we go? I don't know if it's on here, but the universe isolates you so you can find your soul's purpose. It may seem like you've lost friendships and relationships, but finding your path, passion, and purpose in life is worth more. For where your soul is, there you will find your treasure. So, I'm sure everyone here, especially as women, right? We experience times where we don't want to talk to anybody. We just want to go in our hole. We're depressed. we're like, what's wrong with me? It's not just my hormones. I don't feel like myself. You have to honor that because that's your soul telling you something's wrong. Something has to change. And it's not on the outside, it's on the inside. So you have to keep that in perspective. And going back to astrology, transits can explain that for you. So the planets are constantly moving in the sky. And then they're also moving through your chart because your chart's different than the next person. So long story short, if you have a heavy Saturn transit, if you're in your Saturn return, which is for people between like 27 and 31, and then again you have another one, 57 to 60, those years can really suck. I'm just being honest. They can be very sobering and eye-opening, and you could be like, what's wrong with me? I'm so depressed. I've even had clients that were suicidal that had never had thoughts like that before. But knowing that these things will pass, it's just energy. It does not mean it's going to happen or anything bad is going to happen, just like it doesn't always mean some positive, gift from whoever is coming down for you. It's energy and it's what you do with it. So that's really what astrology is. It's the language of energy. So I'm offering for anybody that's interested tonight for the whole month of November, if you would like to do your own chart, use the code. You can go to my website, it's lisasalvatore.com. You can use the code WELCOME, and it's 20% off whole month of November. You don't have to have it done in November, so you can just do. Yes, I do. I have my cards. Yes, I'll put them out. Yes, so that's for the whole month of November. I do feel that if you're interested in it, you will love it. I've never had anybody say to me, even when they hear things they don't necessarily like, they're like, wow, that was eye-opening. So we all have something to learn from each other, right? I hope that everybody has enjoyed this, and I hope that it gave you a little bit more insight into what it is that astrology truly is. And I thank you for being here. And